What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? Is your boy TreJuanJohnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just make sure you keep those comments respectful. And if you're interested in supporting your favorite podcaster, yours truly, the boy's Cash App is going to be in the episode description. So, got a few topics that we're going to talk about today, but I kind of keep them short and sweet. Don't want to take too much time, but of course, we need to talk about how your boy was just bad. Now, you know I pride myself on being the self-proclaimed sports guru, and I feel like this weekend we found out why it was self-proclaimed. I think of the four games, the four playoff games in the NFL, and the national championship in college football yesterday. I think I only got one right because I had Detroit. Um, yep, I had Detroit beating Washington. Was wrong about that. I had the Rams beating the Eagles. Was wrong about that. I had the Ravens beating the Bills. I was wrong about that. And honestly, if it wasn't for some tough breaks, I probably would have been wrong about Kansas City beating Houston. But they were able to pull it out thanks to uh, Patrick Mahomes, that offense, and the referees, but that's neither here nor there. And I was wrong about, the Ohio State taking an L last night. And relatively speaking, one thing that stood out throughout I guess, the whole extended weekend, because obviously yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. So I'm happy belated Martin Luther King Day for those who celebrate. Um, One thing that stood out was there was something that the teams that lost did that kind of stood out to me. And one of those things, or when kind of looking at the games, was I felt like they played to the narratives about them. When people look at these rosters and these teams and certain players, especially at the quarterback position, and I think that's probably where I'm going to focus on mostly, there's a there's narratives that come out about a lot of these players. I will say with Houston, I felt like the narrative was, hey, CJ Stroud is in a slump and we have to play him out of it. He needs to show that he's one of those guys. Yeah, he won the last playoff game, but didn't play too hot either. And this is a sophomore year slump for CJ Stroud, and he's not as good, and he needs to show that he can be a top quarterback and put his name in those conversations. And I felt like he made some mistakes, made some errors, and I felt like a game where you could have ran the ball and ran the ball well with Joe Mixon, a guy who has playoff experience, has gone deep in the playoffs before, has gone to the Super Bowl, has gone to multiple AFC championship games, and did well when he was with the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of carrying that load and making it tough on the defense. That was a guy that you could, you know, you know, ride through and lean on. And I just felt like um, Houston decided not to do that. And they didn't take advantage of the opportunities that Kansas City gave to them. And so that was another narrative. That was a narrative I think going around the Houston circles about C.J. Stroud and what he had to look like. And I think that was a little bit unfair to him. Yeah, he is in year two. Yeah, Joe Burrow made a Super Bowl in year two, but if you really look at that playoff run, it was Joe Mixon in the run game. It was Jamar Chase making some crazy plays in the receiving game, and it was that defense helping them lead them to that Super Bowl against the Rams, where they almost won. But we don't talk about that road. We don't talk about what Joe Burrow looked like during that road. All we know is that in year two, Joe Burrow took a team that was god awful and that had gotten him injured the year before and got him to Super Bowl. So nobody really cared how it happened. It happened. And so I think there was a lot of pressure on CJ Stroud and not being as good as he was last season. Um, to kind of take that next step. And I think, Slowick, the offensive coordinator, I think he played to that. and not making the game easier for CJ and not utilizing the run game a little bit more. And it hurt them in the end. And, while it was a pretty good game for the most part, you saw that the Kansas City Chiefs do what the Kansas City Chiefs do, and they pull away, and they were able to do that against the Houston Texans. Okay, let's then talk about the Washington Commanders versus the Detroit Lions. Shout out to Washington. They played their ball. They played their brand of football. They ran their no huddle. They didn't ask Jaden to do a ton in terms of always having to push the ball downfield. They took timely shots, but more times than not in the passing game, they got the ball to their athletes. They got it to T.J. McLaurin. They got it to De'Ami Brown on some of those screens and things like that, and let the athletes do what they do. They got some quick passes to Zach Ertz. So whenever Detroit tried to bring some pressure, having a veteran tight end like that was really beneficial for Jaden. They were able to run the ball with B Rob and Austin Eckler, utilizing Austin Eckler in the receiving game, just things that made it easier for their quarterback. And by the end of it, did Jaden Daniels have a phenomenal stat line? Yes, he did. But can I also say that it felt like they were just doing whatever it took to win? I can say yes, they did that too. But when you look on the other end, and think of the narratives around Jared Goff. Oh, he's not the bus driver. He's just a passenger. And there's all these other great players in this offensive line and all these things that determine the success of the Detroit Lions, and it has very little to do with Jared Goff. And I felt like there were moments in that game where they wanted to prove to us that, hey, Jared Goff can be the quarterback that can lead you to the Super Bowl. Well, no shit. We saw him lead a team to the Super Bowl before, or at least be on the team, and he made some good plays to get the Rams to the Super Bowl. But when you try to rely on him to win it for you and put it all on his shoulders, he struggled. And he struggled against the Washington Commanders. There were possessions that were going well, moving the ball well, getting the ball out as best as you can, not trying to air it out, utilizing the run game. Jahmyr Gibbs was on a tear these past few games, including the last few games of the regular season. Why not roll through him? You have David Montgomery back. Why not roll through him? But they wanted to show that, hey, not only are we going to win this game, we're going to win this game because Jared Goff is going to take us there. And by the time we're done with this, you're going to be talking about how great and phenomenal of a quarterback that Jared Goff is and how great of an offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is when simple wins the day. Cliff Kingsbury kept it simple. They won the day. They won the game. Clean game. Detroit had multiple turnovers, including multiple interceptions, including a pick six, which you can't have, especially when your defense, who's already dealing with injuries, gets a little bit more. And they were already kind of iffy throughout the year, giving up some big points to some really good teams. And they needed their offense to step up. And their offense felt like we got to do with the narrative, or we got to dispel the narrative that Jared Goff can't be the guy. And you lost the game because you went a route where you never really had to go, trying to prove something that you never really had to prove. You took an L. Let's go Rams, Eagles. Now that one, it's less about what narratives were around Matthew Stafford, because I felt like, if anything, the Rams didn't do enough good of a job to just put the ball in Matthew Stafford's hands. I think, if anything, the narrative around him was how he played in cold weather games. But I'm like, if it's hard for him, it's hard for the defense too. And we saw when they got down double digits and he started pushing that ball and got them back in the game and they had a chance to win the game, you kind of almost left yourself wondering, why the hell weren't you guys doing this a few possessions before? When you kind of started having 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out because you're trying to run the ball and only getting 2 yards, and now you got Matthew Stafford and 3rd and long against one of the better pass rushes in the league, probably, again, the best defensive line unit in the league. So you go down 2 scores. He starts to air it out. Him and Cooper Kupp are having a connection. Him and Puka are having a connection. Him and Tyler Higbee are having a connection. They're getting the ball where it needs to go. But it's almost like you run out of time. So if anything of a narrative around Matthew Stafford, I felt like it was hearing about, well, this is how he struggles in cold games, and we gotta establish the run, and we gotta try to make sure we neutralize the pass rush and get quick throws instead of having him test the boundaries and test this secondary, which of the units is the weakest unit for the Philadelphia Eagles. And they just didn't let Matthew Stafford attack. Now, on the flip side, with Jalen Hurts, I felt like, again, much like with Jaden Daniels, Kellen Moore called the game plan that played to his quarterback's strengths. He opens the game with a 44-yard touchdown run. Obviously, we know what Saquon Barkley did, rushing for almost 200 yards, having two explosive touchdowns. They win that game. And you can say, oh well, he didn't throw that many touch, or he didn't throw that many yards, and he was missing a throw here or there. But guess what? They won the game. They won the game playing a style of football that was going to get the best out of your offensive unit. Same thing can be said for the Buffalo Bills against the Ravens. Josh Allen had less than 150 total yards. I think he had 127 passing yards, 20 rush yards, but he had 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, a very clean game. And that was the difference. He had a clean game. Lamar had 2 turnovers. It didn't matter how many plays late that Lamar made, obviously getting them down, scoring a touchdown, having a chance at 2. And I really want to park at that game because that's the game that truly inspired today's show. Because again, for I would say maybe the third or fourth year in a row, the Baltimore Ravens decided to play for narratives and not for wins. Derrick Henry averaging 5 yards a carry, Justice Hill averaging 8 yards a carry. Why, in some of the most crucial moments, you literally had a touchdown drive, you ran it down that throat, decide to go for 2 a little bit before you have to, and you decide to pass the ball, trying to do an exotic crossing route to get the tight end wide open on the opposite side of the field, and it didn't work. Lamar didn't have enough time, couldn't get the ball there. After a possession where Derrick Henry got you there. Then you have the 2-minute drive, right? You get down. Lamar's making some incredible plays, obviously coming off a possession where Mark Andrews had fumbled the previous possession. You end up scoring a touchdown, getting into Isaiah Likely. And then you bring Derrick Henry back in the game, and you don't even utilize him. Now, granted, was it an incorrect play call in the sense that, hey, you got your best target wide open, he drops the ball. So had you executed it, you get it to, you have a chance to play some defense, get to overtime. So I get that. But was that the best play? When you have arguably the best running back in football, when your quarterback's best asset at this point in his, like up until this point in his career, has been his legs, how do you not utilize that dynamic? Because you wanted to prove a narrative that Lamar can get it done with his arm. And why? Where has that gotten you? Trying to prove these narratives, and we talked about this going into the playoffs, with assuming that they would beat Buffalo and get a shot at Patrick Mahomes. How many times are you going to realize that you're not him? You can't win the game the way he wins the game, playing his style. You have to do what you do best. And Ravens, for some reason, just again decided not to do that. And once again, they're going to be on the couch like I am right now, watching the rest of the playoffs and seeing someone else, and more than likely that someone else being Patrick Mahomes, hoisting another Lombardi trophy. That's not you. And just and to cap it off, just kind of talk about the college football game, and shout out to the Ohio State University for doing what they had to do and winning that game and playing their ball. Here we're gonna get the ball to our athletes. We're going to make sure Will is efficient. We don't have to test the boundaries and throw the ball 30, 40 yards downfield to show you how big of an arm he has. So we can try to get the guy who's probably a fifth round pick right now, drafted in the first round. We ain't here for that. We're here to win a national title. Notre Dame, in the most crucial part in the game, decided to play for the narratives. The narratives were, y'all can't, y'all can't cover man to man. Don't you play man to man. Don't you play one on one against these Ohio State wide receivers. They struggled in the first half because they tried to do it and it didn't work. Second half, they make the adjustment. You give your cornerback safety help, whoever's defending Jeremiah Smith. In the most crucial game, you have all the momentum in your favor. Down 8, over 2 minutes left. You're about to get the ball before you even hit 2 minute timeout or 2 minute warning. Well, I call it 2 minute warning, but 2 minute timeout in college football. You call an all-out blitz. You leave your third best cornerback on their best wide receiver. I have no idea how he decided to cover that, giving up as much leverage as he did. Gave up essentially 12 yards leverage because he was 8 yards off and then 4 yards to the inside. So essentially 12 yards off to their best receiver. He catches the ball. It's ball game. It's over. Because you decided on the sidelines when they say we can't stop man to man. Well, I'm going to show them in the most crucial point of the game. We're going to get this stop. We're going to get to the quarterback. We're going to force them into a mistake, and we're going to make a play. And they're going to talk about how, man, I can't believe Notre Dame took that opportunity and it just worked out for them. At what point in the game had Will Howard shown you that he would fold under the pressure? At what point? Because up until that point, he had not, especially passing the ball. He had not folded under the pressure, especially versus man to man, knowing that, hey, it's my guy against your guy, and my guy, more times than not, is going to be better than your guy. At no point in that game, when in that scenario, did he fold under the pressure. And the most important time in the game, you think 30th time's the charm? That's what you thought. And it backfired. And so as a fan of the game, I'm just watching and I'm like, look, no disrespect, but like, are we playing for wins or are we playing for narratives? Because the name of the game is to win. It is to the winner. It does not matter how they won. Like, it doesn't matter that Ohio State only scored 10 points in the second half. They won the game. It doesn't matter that Jeremiah Smith only had that one catch in the second half. Because they weren't trying to force feed him because, hey, you only had one catch against Texas. You got to force feed the kid. Can't let him take him out the game. No, you want to take Jeremiah out the game? We're going to go to somebody else. We're going to go to Emeka. We're going to go to Carnell Tate. We're going to go to our tight ends. We're going to go to our backs. We're going to utilize our quarterback in the run game. If that's the game you want to play. And when we get into these championship atmospheres, it's the teams that do whatever it takes to win that win the game. It doesn't matter who outplayed who. Everybody and their mama knows that Lamar Jackson outplayed Josh Allen, but Josh Allen played a clean game. He didn't turn the ball over. And that was the difference. That was the difference. You can talk about Mark Andrews' fumble, you can talk about his drop, but your starting quarterback had an interception that made zero sense. I don't care if you guys keep saying, "Oh well, Rashad Bateman broke off the route." That pass wasn't open. Otherwise, the safety wouldn't have been the person going to get it. So you thinking that there's an available go route when they have safety help over top, that was already a bad decision. In my opinion, I feel like Rashad Bateman saw the safety and said, hey, I got this deep out. And it was open. So had you not assumed pre-snap that, hey, I'm gonna throw this go route because you misread the coverage, you at least have a first down completion and not an interception. Oh, well, the fumble was a bobble snap. Yeah, it was a bad snap that he recovered. And instead of just taking the sack, killing it down, trying to make a play in a snowstorm with a slick ball, you fumble. They score a touchdown off of it. You lost by 2 points. So at what point or are we going to start really analyzing these playoff performers and not, again, to say who's outperforming who? I want to know who is playing the game in a way that my team is going to win this game. I'm not going to turn the ball over. I'm going to make the plays that need to be made because when called upon, Josh Allen made the plays. When he had to throw the ball downfield, he was able to throw the ball downfield. When Jaden Daniels had to throw the ball downfield, guess what he did? Threw the ball downfield. Hey, Jalen Hurts, 44-yard run. Hey, a big fourth down. What does he do? Hit A.J. Brown on a key slant route to keep the drive going. So we saw quarterbacks making the plays, probably not as flashy as you might think, right? Or might want it to be, but they made the plays to win the game. And that's what it's all about. This whole narrative about, who's the bus driver and that type of stuff. At the end of the day, do you want to be a champion or not? And I think some of these teams, especially the Baltimore Ravens, have to go into next season saying, do we want to be champions or not? And what does it take for us to get there? Because I guarantee you, Patrick Mahomes don't care if he only throw for 50 yards. He doesn't care about the GOAT conversations. He doesn't care about being the top quarterback in the league or one of the best players in the league. Not when it comes to, can I win that title? Is what I'm doing enough to help us win? Am I holding my team back? And even if that's me trying to do too much, am I holding them back in that endeavor instead of letting the game come to me? But anyways, that was just something I was thinking about this weekend and how narratives can affect championship aspirations. And we've seen it time and time again. And some of our favorite players are going to have to understand that when you win, who cares? You're a winner. And that's what matters at the end of the day. Um, Speaking of winners, I want to transition to some of these coaching searches. I am 2 for 2 right now. I'm probably going to be 3 for 3 as I predicted Mike Vrabel to the Patriots. Everybody and their mama saw that coming. Predicted Ben Johnson to the Bears. I think most of us really saw that coming, even though they said the Raiders were going to come on strong. But now it's looking like the Jets may be positioning themselves to hire Aaron Glenn before he is set to interview with New Orleans tomorrow, which is fine. I mean, I kind of felt like Aaron Glenn was leaning towards the Jets. He was drafted by that team, played with them for a number of years, and they weren't a team that interviewed him 4 years ago as a sham. So, um, while I think he does have some love for the organization and have some love for the city of New Orleans, I mean, you can't forget that that's something that did happen, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if we wake up tomorrow morning and it's announced that he is the head coach of the New York Jets. I think I had Pete Carroll taking the Raiders job. I had Liam Cohen taking the Jaguars job. Actually, I have Kellen Moore taking the Saints job, and that could be Joe Brady, but I didn't have Joe Brady actually taking the job this cycle. I felt like he might wait for another opportunity. And then with the Cowboys being new to the party, actually had the Brian Schottenheimer, who's the current OC or was the OC for them this year. He's the favorite for that job, and I've heard enough things to where that seems like a move that Jerry would make. But obviously, Kellen Moore's a name, Jason Witten's a name, Cliff Kingsbury is a name. They requested to interview him this week. So who knows if I'm going to be right on all of them. I actually put in my tweet, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be right on all of them. I didn't think I would be right on most of them. But right now, I'm batting 100 or batting 1,000, I think is how you say it. But I'm not a baseball guy. But yep, batting 1,000. So um, 2 for 2, could be 3 for 3 by tomorrow morning. And hopefully, honestly, I just want to be right about the Saints because, look, um, while it's great, what Mike Grable is doing, he's going to be doing with the Patriots and just hired Josh McDaniel and what Ben Johnson can be doing with Caleb Williams over with the Bears. Apparently, he's going to hire Dennis Allen to be his defense coordinator. So shout out to DA for. I mean, obviously, we always knew this guy wasn't going to be unemployed for long when it came to being one of the best defensive minds in our game today. But when it comes to the Saints specifically, okay, you would have missed out on Mike Vrabel, who is one of your top options. You would have missed out on Aaron Glenn if should he sign with the Jets, who's one of your top options. You bring in Mike McCarthy, who's a guy's top option. Kellen Moore, being a guy's top option. Joe Brady, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but at the same time, like beggars can't be choosers in that regard. If you want a young coach, young offensive minded coach, he's a good guy. We did interview Mike Kafka and Anthony Weaver again. So those are actually two guys that are getting a lot more buzz than maybe we had thought before. But even to me, I still think, like I said in a few episodes, probably I think last week's episode, last Tuesday, I mentioned that to me, I think they're just still guys that are a cycle away. I think 2026 teams will be knocking down doors to hire those two candidates. I just don't personally think that the Saints will this season. And so when I think of realistic candidates, yeah, you got Mike McCarthy. Yeah, you got Kellen Moore. You got Joe Brady. But Darren Rizzi is very much a realistic option to be the Saints head coach. 3-5 is interim um, this past season. I told you guys in last week's episode, his speech is going to be I was 3-1 with Derek Carr. I was 3-1 with Derek Carr. I was 3-1 with Derek Carr. And I showed that we could win games. I beat our division rival in the Atlanta Falcons. We can do this. I showed you this. That is what he's going to say, right? And and it's just what it is. And there's been talks about, he's interviewed really, really well, was able to, um, according to reports, state that his vision and explain that well of his vision for the Saints and what he would like and what he would do as head coach. He got a um, stamp of approval from not only Cam Jordan but Alvin Kamara. Which, look, the former I get it because Rizzi is gonna let you do what you like. You don't want to play defensive tackle. Rizzi put you back at the defensive end more and more, and you kind of had your fake sacks towards the end of the year, and I get that. But Alvin Kamara giving Darren Rizzi his vote of confidence was alarming to me. When you think of a guy who in that 2017 class, actually the last remaining guy on our team from that 2017 class with the trade of Marshawn Lattimore this past season, and being in that building and working with Drew Brees every day and working with Sean Payton every day. And the past couple seasons, you're sitting at your locker room saying, man, losing's not fun. And I'm not used to losing. And that's not what we do here. To then pound your chest for a guy who is 3-5 and didn't really change the landscape of our team last year just because he's likable. A lot of guys are likable. Doesn't mean that they're best for the job. And you're gonna pound your chest and then do the whole, well, all the people that's against some of these coaching hires, they haven't played since the seventh grade and they played Madden in 2K or whatever the hell he said. So then you want to kind of push the credentials out. Yeah, professional athletes. Here's a disclaimer, guys. Professional athletes will always push out their credentials when they're about to say something stupid. Okay, it happens all the time. Happens all the time. Before they say something completely idiotic that makes zero sense, that no sane person in their life would be advocating for, they're going to let you know. Well, I play in the NFL, or I play in the NBA, I play in Major League Baseball, so I know. Uh, guys, we've been through this. You you stamped Dennis Allen. Remember, you said he didn't lose the locker room, and you guys were playing for him. He's gone. And now you want to beat your chest for Darren Rizzi? Well, if you wanted him so bad, how about not being 3-5? How about that? How about win more games? How about being 4-1? Or or how about being, losing one of those games? Instead of being 3-5 in the 8 games, how about being 4-4? How about 5-3, 6-2? Like, and I use this example on the timeline. Follow me on at Future NBA Gov and also follow me at Bud Disrespect. By the way, had to put that plug in. Um, I mentioned when the Raiders they had two opportunities and they cashed in on one. First opportunity was with Coach Bisaccia, I think is how you pronounce it. He went 7-5. John Gruden got dismissed, obviously, because of the emails and everything, right? 7-5 as the interim head coach. They finished 10-7 on the year, get to the playoffs, a play away from beating the eventual AFC champions, Cincinnati Bengals. But they decided not to go with him. They went with Josh McDaniel, right? Josh McDaniel obviously gets fired in the season. Antonio Pierce takes over last year. Goes 5-4. Aiden O'Connell is playing his behind off. They say, you know what? We don't want to make the same mistake twice. We're gonna go with we'll at least go with AP. He at least earned enough, and the players are vouching for that. They vouch for winning. You, on the other hand, the one who wants to win a championship and is not used to losing and wants to get back to the glory days of winning the NFC South and having a chance at the Super Bowl, that's what you're gonna put your stamp behind. And furthermore, you want to throw your credentials around. Well, look, if the Saints are stupid enough to listen to a roster that has leaders who have missed playoffs 4 years in a row, then be my guest. But when Darren Rizzi does what we know he would do as the head coach of the Saints, and we lose a lot, oh, I will go. I will be there, and I will say, well, yeah, the folks on the couch and the folks that only play games in their mama basement, they saw this coming, but the future NFL Hall of Famer, obviously the best back in Saints history, one of the better players in general in Saints and NFL history. They didn't see it coming. Huh. Would you look at that? Almost like we can see through your BS too. That it's the check. We paid you. You got to extend it. Cool. Great. You got to be the company man. Fine. But can we start to get guys in that's going to actually get us back to a winning standard? I love Rizzi. I think he should be a part of the staff still. But head coach, come on, man. What did he show? You tell me. You've been in the league. Tell me what he showed that says, hey, next year we're division champs. What did he show? All right then. But I'm tired of these guys feeling like they still have the cachet. You don't have the cachet. You didn't win anything. Sean Payton won a championship. Drew Brees won a championship. Those guys had cachet to say what they wanted, what they didn't want, who they wanted, who they didn't want. What you want? Oh, 4 division titles? Ooh. The Bucks just did that again. That's how impressive that is. Carolina did it 3 years in a row. That's how impressive that is. It's been done before. You didn't do anything special. So you haven't brought a championship to this city. So why do we take the word in who you endorse? Especially 4 years in a row, no playoffs. Not even close. Not even close. That's the insane part. They haven't even been close, except for Sean's last year, where I guess we beat the Falcons and had the Rams won, and beat the 49ers. We would have won or something like that, whatever it was. It's about the closest we've been. And it makes sense because of who was the coach. You had that level of coaching. 4 years, and 3 of those being with a guy who wasn't good for 2.5, and another guy who was subpar for another half. Is that what we're selling to the Saints? That's what we're selling to Who Dat Nation? That's who we are publicly going out on our social media pages and just beating the drum for? Well, if you want to play for a head coach whose last name rhymes with Fizzy, well, wherever he ends up landing, you can demand a trade there. Make sure you get the contract situated so we can have some flexibility. Um, a 4th-round pick would be ideal, and you can go play for him. But that shit ain't happening here, and y'all not calling the shots anymore because y'all ain't won nothing. Y'all haven't earned that. I'm sorry, it's out of hand. And you're playing right into Mickey Loomis's hands to where you guys are going to retire and not win anything. And oh, you get to go into the Saints Hall of Honor eventually. But you can't put your name with Drew. You can't put your name with Marcus Colston. You can't put your name with Will Smith. You can't put your name with Michael Lewis. Not champions. You can't put your name with Jonathan Vilma. You can't put your name with Tracy Porter. You can't put your name with, you know, the guy's name, but I ain't gonna say it. You just on a long list of really good guys that played for the Saints organization. You are Bobby Abear. You are Aaron Brooks. That's the tier you're in right now. Now, if you're comfortable with that, then by all means, that's okay. But just understand that you won't be at some of these guys' level. You're not. I don't care what the stats say. You're not Reggie. You're not Deuce, who, albeit was retired, had to retire by the time we won the championship. He was still part of the team and helped lead us and establish that culture of winning and that we could win the championship. So if that's the company you want to keep and just be the guys that were just good enough to be recognized for their accomplishments in the Saints uniform, or do you want to be the guys that not only had the stats and the numbers that showed at their place, but they brought a championship banner to the city of New Orleans? Some of you still have an opportunity to do that, but you want to campaign for mediocrity. Be my guest, but that don't mean we got to support it. Anyways, as always in the show, if there's anything I said that offended anyone, it's a good thing, right? It's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.